Scripting basics. In this lesson, we're going to look at common scripting languages that you as an IT professional should be aware of, and the scripting languages that's on the CompTIA A plus exam. So let's go ahead and get started. People often do not know the difference between a scripting language and a programming language, and sometimes use these terms interchangeably. Both languages are used for software development. All scripting languages can be used as programming languages, but the vice versa is not true. The basic difference between them is that scripting languages are not compiled, they're interpreted. An interpreter executes instructions written directly, whereas if a program was compiled, the compiler translates the program language into machine code. Scripting languages do not need to be compiled. They are interpreted by the shell, by the command line, or an external interpreter. The interpreter reads the script and executes the instructions in the operating system. Basically, a scripting language is a programming language designed specifically for runtime environments. It automates the execution of tasks. Now, there are several types of scripting languages. Each language has its own syntax and characteristics. As far as choosing the right scripting language, it's really going to depend on the operating system and the task that you want to perform. And you're going to find out a little bit more about each one as we go through this lesson. Now, the scripting skill is great to have as an IT professional. By working with different OSs, you may be learning several different scripting languages throughout your career. So let's look at the first scripting language, and that is the batch file. Now, the batch file is a .bat file extension. Windows batch scripts have been around since Microsoft Disk Operating System or DOS. The Windows batch script is probably the fastest way to get something done when all you need is a list of commands run right after the other. It's a quick way to create user accounts, make backups of files, and other tasks. Now, batch scripts can also contain logic. A simple bat file script can check for certain variable based on the that follow a logic to perform a number of functions. And again, it's a quick way to accomplish tasks as for an administrator. The Windows PowerShell. Now, PowerShell or the .ps1 file extension. Now, this is for advanced commands for system administrators. PowerShell allows for the automation and the management of the Windows operating system, as well as cloud related services such as Microsoft Azure and Microsoft 365. Now, one of the limiting features of any scripting language is the ability to perform a needed task. PowerShell was created to be totally extensible. It uses commandlets, which are a series of commands and functions run with one script. Also, it was built on the .NET Framework Common Language runtime. Any programmable library a .NET application has access to, PowerShell can use it, which also makes it very extensible. Now, the Windows PowerShell has been really a part of the Windows family since Server 2008. And most of the time, when you activate or use a server in the server management tool, you're actually running a PowerShell command in the background. Now, PowerShell also can do standalone executables as well. Microsoft Visual Basic, also known as VB scripts. And the file extension here is the .vbs. Now, this is slowly being replaced by PowerShell. Now, the VB script technology has been around since Windows 98 and Windows NT. So it's a very long, mature scripting language. But like I said, it's being slowly being replaced. VB scripts also run only on Windows operating systems, unlike PowerShell scripts. The Visual Basic scripting is a general purpose use. You can use it for scripting inside of a Microsoft Office application, scripting applications on the Windows desktop, as well as back end web server scripting as well. Rule of thumb here when you're thinking about Microsoft Visual Basic scripting, it automates applications. Shell script. The bash stands for Born Again Shell. Bash is a backwards compatible with its predecessor called Bourne Shell or SH. Whether you're using the bash shell or the SH shell, either will perform similar functions for scripting purposes. The shell itself interprets commands for scripting, similar to the Windows DOS shell. However, the bash and the sh or .sh shells are much more advanced in their structure and functionality than DOS. Now, the Linux Unix shell scripts are basically how the operating system boots and boots itself up and starts all the necessary services. Using a shell script is the most useful for repetitive tasks that may be time consuming to execute by typing one command line after another. A few examples of some of the applications that can be used with a shell script is running a program or creating a program environment, completing a batch or manipulating files, linking existing programs together, executing runtime backups, and monitoring a system. All those can be done with a bash script. JavaScript, the .js file extension. Now, JavaScript and the Java programming language have several similarities. For example, they are both object oriented languages and their syntax is similar. However, the similarities in there. Because Java is a programming language and the JavaScript is a scripting language, with the difference being that Java is compiled, whereas JavaScript is a scripting language. JavaScript is mainly interpreted in web browsers to allow for interactive web pages. JavaScript is one of the three core web technologies. The other are the hypertext markup language, which is HTML, and the cascading style sheets, which is CSS. So again, the JavaScript it adds interactivity to HTML and CSS web pages. Python. .py is the file extension for Python. And the Python scripting language was first released in 1991, and it started to gain popularity over other scripting languages in the past 10 years or so. Now, it's not normally installed by default on any operating system. Popular in many technologies, broad appeal and support, very portable. Uh, it can be used and compiled on one system and it can be moved to another system. It works on different operating systems as well. Now, there's going to be some use cases for scripting. We've talked about different ways that you can use scripting, but let's specifically go over some of the use cases for scripting that where you would want to use scripting. And we've mentioned automating tasks. Scripts are perfect for automation, creating users, adding users to groups and backups. They're fast. There's no typing errors. Once you configure that script and let it run, it's guaranteed to operate at the same time each time versus manually doing that command if a person was doing it. Restarting machines, another important task. Applications, updates, security patches that all may require a restart. It can be done with a script. Remapping network drives can be performed in a number of different ways. It can be performed at login. It can also automate with software changes as well. Again, different cases for scripting. Application installation. When scripting is combined with the installation of applications, you can perform a number of functions that are not possible on their own. For example, you can write a script that installs the prerequisites for an installation and then only succeed if the subsequent installations are successful. Automated backups. Automate the backup process to make it more reliable. Or you can have a redundant backup to existing backup software. Gathering of information and data. And this is where scripting shines. Get detailed information from a group of computers. You may have softwares that have agents on computers that get information, but what if you wanted to customize that and get certain information off of certain systems in your network or all the systems in the network? You can customize the scripting to do just that job. You can gather that information and export it to a file or for a report. Other scripting considerations that you should consider and be aware of is sometimes you unintentionally could introduce malware. Verify and know what is being installed. If you're doing a script, know the ramifications of that script and what it's doing and what it could allow, and also inadvertently changing system settings. You want to be sure that when you have a script and it's performing a function, that you're inadvertently not turning something off or changing settings or making configuration changes that can make your system or your network vulnerable. Test it out on another computer or on a VM. That's the best way to do it. in a sandbox, more or less. And also, you can track file and registry changes as well. Browser or system crashes, mishandling of system resources. Again, verify your code, test the code before deployment, and know what it's actually doing so you won't have those mishaps that happen. Okay, in this lesson, we talked about scripting basics. Went over common and popular scripting languages, the use cases for those scripting languages, and considerations that you should be aware of when you're writing your scripts. I want to thank you for joining me with this lesson, and I will see you in the next lesson.